APS got their first indication that there was something wrong with the inverter about 50 to 55 minutes before the incident was dispatched. And so they were getting some heating indications in their limited battery management system that they had, and that the clean agent had gone off there, and a smoke alarm had gone off, and the clean agent had gone off. And so it was until another 50 to 55 minutes later is that the passerby is the first call that dispatch received. It may have been also the reason that the individual got from Scottsdale over so quickly is he already had to jump on it, perhaps. So anyway, when Hunter and folks got there, one of the things a couple of things that they indicated. One was the smoke. They described it as a heavy white fog on the ground and extending about 2-3 feet off the ground and extending outside of the fenced area and out as far as 50 to 100 feet in some areas as the wind was blowing. And so one of the first conversations they had with the subject matter experts, which were later on more described as representatives than subject matter experts. And I say that because I had a chance to talk to them after the incident, a couple of weeks after, and they were electrical engineers, didn't know much, didn't appear to know much about battery systems, and certainly didn't seem to know much about runaway. And so they knew a whole lot about electricity, but that was kind of the extent and kind of was indicated on the scene. Hunter asked him, what is that white fog that's coming out of every opening in the box, including the AC systems, air conditioning systems, and they indicated that it was halon. And so Hunter's thinking was halon hasn't existed for about 15 years, so it can't be halon. And they said, oh, it's just halon. It's nothing more. It's the clean agent. And Hunter, again, in his thought process was clean agents are colorless and odorless. So, I mean, it's not a clean agent. When he talked to the chemist did tell him that it was Novak 1230, but that was pretty much what they were seeing on the ground. And so they knew that they were facing something different. And with the limited knowledge that they had about battery systems, that they kind of had a thought that it may be the electrolyte even from the battery system, which later on we kind of learned that it was. And so they entered that fenced area, took readings, and they were getting their meters pegged out with the hydrogen cyanide, which was a real concern at that point. And they were pegging out at, I think the meters pegged out at 50 parts per million. And then the other thing was the carbon monoxide was pegging out the meters at about 500 parts per million or so also. And then they had some carbon dioxide in there also. So over the course of like 3 hours, they went in and out and talked to the SMEs and went back in and metered. In the one of the first entries that they did into the fenced area is they had a thermal image camera with them. And so they were looking around the box, and they initially got a reading towards the center of the box on one side, one of the long sides, towards the center, about 6 feet off the ground, which later we learned that that's where the inverter was, that they had gotten an indication that it was heating up. And that was the rack that was involved, is in retrospect that we learned later on, was in that area. So over the course of the next 3 hours or so, they went in and out, and eventually, as Captain Marty said, it started to dissipate a little bit. The readings started to come down. They weren't getting anything on the camera, and APS is asking for their building back. So the thought process at that point is that they felt that it would be unconscionable to hand over the structure to Arizona Public Service, a utility company, knowing that if they were getting such high readings of particularly hydrogen cyanide on the outside, that the readings inside must be, totally out through the roof. They felt that at one point it's not burning, and we're not getting hot spots. We're not getting anything on the thermal image camera. So at one point, we need to open it up, ventilate it, so it exhausts the toxic gases. And if there's flammable gases, which they suspect that they may be, is they also vent those out, and then they can safely turn the building back over, was the mentality. If they would have had a fire in there, their thought process was they were going to let it burn. And going back to the Tesla incident they had a year prior, they knew they didn't have enough water to put it out. So they were going to let it burn, was the mentality. But then that shifted over to it's not burning, and we got these high toxic gases and flammable gases on the outside. And so what is in the inside? And again, it's unconscionable just to turn the keys over, which the key by coincidence was in one of the doors when they got there. And they had taken it out of that side door. There was a side door towards the one end of the Connex box. They took it out. They went and tried it. Actually, one of the firefighters went and tried it on another door at the opposite end, at the end cap, and the key didn't work, which was luckily. And so they come back, and like I say, after about 3 hours, they decided that they would have somebody on the hose line. They would crack the door open, knowing that there's a chance of it exploding. They were conscious of that. We're always conscious of that. And so they cracked the door open. They didn't really have any positive or negative pressures with cracking the door open. So to them, that was a good indication. They opened the door slowly, and they completely open it up. And there's this white fog that is kind of hugging the ground and all the way up to about the 4-foot level or so. And they could see kind of a red canister, a tank on the other end, and they weren't sure what that was, which ended up being the tank for the Novak 1230. That's what it ended up being. But they started to take readings there, and they were getting still very high readings of hydrogen cyanide, kind of peak, just tapping the meters out, and the carbon monoxide. They had put in their meters the chip for hydrogen, trying to get pure hydrogen readings. They weren't getting pure hydrogen readings. They recalibrated 3 times during the time between they opened the door and the explosion. And Hunter's estimate was that it was about 30 or 45 seconds every time they recalibrated. They also had some Draeger tubes that we still keep around for kind of situations like that. And they weren't really getting any hydrogen readings or any other readings off of that, which may have been cross-contamination. But at one point, Hunter, about 3 minutes into it, takes out the thermal imaging camera and sticks it, around the corner while he's standing at the threshold of the door, and he gets a reading of about 104 degrees, which is nothing unusual for that time of year in Phoenix, Arizona, in a hot box. So he reports it over the air to dispatch. And just a couple of seconds later is when Engine 304 calls a mayday, and they're blown through underneath the fence and about 75 feet from the door of where the explosion took place. And it also blew the other door on the end cap off the hinges and stuff.
Captain Mark,